In this video, we're going to introduce our newest unit, which is agriculture. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different forms of agriculture across the world, and introduce a few key vocabulary terms that will be important as we go through this unit and study agriculture. So agriculture is defined as the deliberate modification of the Earth's surface through cultivation of plants and rearing of animals to obtain sustenance or economic gain. So we are going to learn a lot about the different types of agriculture, and these will help us kind of what's in the video is going to help us define different types of agriculture. So the first two terms that are the most important in terms of how we classify agriculture are distinction between commercial agriculture and subsistence agriculture. So commercial agriculture is defined as primarily for purpose of selling products for money, often monocultures for economies of scale. So essentially, agriculture done that is for a commercial purpose. And subsistence agriculture is agriculture that is for direct consumption by a local population. So usually small scale, low tech, and lots of human labor. So there's going to be a lot of different types of both of these, but these are kind of this is kind of the main distinction between the two. So just thinking first a little bit about commercial agriculture. So most of the agriculture that's done in the United States is considered to be commercial agriculture. And you get a sense just from this map of just how much farmland is used within the country. And you can kind of see the scale of farming within the United States. So this is at the national scale, and the scale of analysis is at the county level. But you can see basically counties that are used for majority of farming, and you can kind of get a sense of the scale of commercial farming within the U.S. So some general trends that we see in the United States and in more developed countries in general is kind of as commercial farming has grown, as commercial agriculture has become the predominant form of agriculture in the country, the percentage of the workforce in agriculture has declined from its kind of peaks of 70% in the mid 19th century, all the way down to what we see today, which is fewer than about 3% of the country is engaged in farming. And as that has happened, the farm output or the economic gain has kept going up and up and up. So essentially, we see commercial agriculture going at a larger scale with more economic gain. And you can see that the cash crops that we typically see within the United States, so corn, soybeans, wheat, those things that we grow a lot of. So commercial agriculture tends to be large scale, like we talked about, tends to be done kind of at a large scale and associated with agribusiness and transnational corporations, or at least national corporations. So companies like Monsanto and Cargill and some of the major food producing countries or food producing companies have their hands in a lot of different products, a lot of different crops that they grow, and they tend to grow lots and lots of the same thing within the operations. So they're practiced in more developed countries, and they are also associated with the practice of monocropping, which is basically what we call when you grow lots and lots of one thing. So we're going to watch a video in class that covers commercial agriculture pretty well and gives you a lot of different visualizations of what we're talking about. So most of the kind of this map shows you the percentage of the country that's engaged in agriculture within a country. So we see the United States, Canada, kind of between 0 and 3%, and most of the more developed world is below at least 10%. And then on the other side of the coin, we have a lot of what we would call subsistence agriculture. So subsistence agriculture tends to be smaller scale, very, very labor intensive. So it requires the work of a lot of people and oftentimes the really hard work of individual people. And it's practiced more in less developed countries and developing countries. So we're going to see the term intensive and extensive a lot. So I want to talk about what those terms mean, kind of give us some different classifications of these. So we have a lot of different types of agriculture that sort of fall within commercial and subsistence. And some of these will require, essentially this phrase is the really important one, high inputs of labor and high output per acre. So it's essentially when you have very, very productive per land farming operations. So we'll talk a little bit more in just a second about that. And the other side of the coin is extensive land use. So this is where you have really, really large amounts of land that are being used to produce kind of low outputs of labor and economic, not economic output, but low output per acre. So things that require a lot of land, essentially. So if we're looking at intensive versus extensive, you see both commercial and subsistence kind of in both categories. But some examples of intensive farming practices would be kind of market gardening, so vegetable gardening, plantation style agriculture, so oftentimes growing things like coffee or cocoa beans or bananas, other things that we would associate with plantation style agriculture. And then having an operation that includes both animals and essentially what the animals usually eat to go with them. So that would be a mixed crop and a livestock system. And extensive farming practices are things, again, like we said, that require lots and lots of land. So last week we talked about nomadic herding and transhumance and pastoral nomadism. Those would be considered to be extensive farming practices. Ranching, and also one called shifting cultivation, which includes the practice of slashing and burning of different forests to kind of, and then essentially rotating around the land. So that requires a lot of land to do that. So we have a few additional terms, labor and capital intensive. So these are both what they sound like. Labor intensive is when you have lots and lots of the work of people, large amount of human work applied per unit of output. So this is associated more with subsistence farming. And then capital intensive, which is large amounts of money applied per output of land. So this is, of course, associated more with commercial style farming. And the last thing we'll look at is a little bit of a map. So I'm going to have you pause the video and I'm going to have you do something to go with this. Okay, so pause the video and yeah, thanks. Bye.